Oh, you figured it out.
Yes. I love it when Zoom updates itself. So thank you everybody for coming. My name is Kara. I do these workshops twice a month. They are free and it is solely directed towards authors. You could be a trad, you can be indie, you can just be writing. Oh, she's back. Um, and or I try to give everybody an overview of social media and help you figure out what the best way for you is, because what might work for you might not work for me. What might work for me might not work for Christine. And so there's no wrong way. There's just figuring out everything you're doing. Some of you guys know me real quick. And because they're excited to hear the same exact speech every time. I was a ghostwriter from 2019 to 2023-ish. There were people who kept coming out of these publishing academies who were just like, I want a ghostwriter. And this publishing academies were telling them that if they published one book a month for however long, they would become millionaires. And those people were never taught, hey, you have to actually market yourself. You can't just rely on your book. So all of them quit. And so throughout that time, I was learning how to do indie publishing, and I was learning I saw how many mistakes everybody was making, and I saw how easily they could have been remedied if they would have just pivoted, but they didn't. So that is why I am here helping people, and that is why I want to share some of my knowledge with you and help you guys not give up, because there's always a different way. So Christine is someone who I met on Instagram. She is in many of my writing groups. She just actually got a super kick-ass agent. And gosh, I don't know. We started talking what, in August?
I was gonna say like 7, 8 months ago, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I only started my Bookstagram account in July, which is something I'm going to talk about today. And so we met pretty quickly. After, yeah, like you say, Kara, the algorithm threw us together.
So, and last week, if you guys, or not last week, earlier in the month, we did a TikTok's basic thing. If you're interested in that, this will be in the newsletters and on the recording. So I am going to let Christine start up. I should have like written a sorry, I should have written an introduction to like
Oh,
introduce you properly.
it's okay. I can introduce myself.
All right, guys. If you want to keep your questions to the chat, I'm going to be here and I'll do the administrative stuff. And then at the end, we're gonna go ahead and give some Q&A to you. But thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Tell me you work in marketing without telling me you work in marketing. I made a deck. I don't know if everybody always makes a deck, but I made a deck. And I made it in Canva, which was exciting for me because for work, I have to use PowerPoint, and Canva is much more fun. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Christine Drummond. I am a market research executive by trade. I have worked in the market research world for almost 20 years. It was my first job out of college, and I still do it to this day, although I do it part-time now because my other part-time job is I am an author. So in case folks don't know what market research is, because every time for the past 15 years, people have asked me what I do for a living, and I say I work in market research, they like have a question mark over their head. Basically, it means that I help big brands, primarily Fortune 500 companies. I've worked with everyone from like Abercrombie and Fitch to Vanguard Financial Services to Pepsi, even some publishing companies, which I will talk about. Basically, they come to my company, people like me, with a question that they want to solve, and we do research. We talk to people. Sometimes we talk to 10 people. Sometimes we talk to 10,000. We talk to people and we try to get them answers using data and sort of strategic thinking. And so for me, when I started this Bookstagram journey, and I'm going to talk mostly about Instagram today, not as big on TikTok, and you guys just covered that. When I started this journey, I really tried to use some of that knowledge that had just kind of like inherently built up over the past 15 years to grow my account. And so that's really what I'm going to talk to you about today. This isn't really a tutorial on how to go viral. Sorry. There are ways to do that, but this is really about how to make a plan that is thoughtful and strategic for your Instagram presence so that you can achieve whatever goal you have, and see sustained growth over time. As we go, feel free to ask me any questions. And then the author part, which Kara very vaguely touched on. I wrote 18 months ago a fantasy romance book called Kingdom of the Owl, when I was on sabbatical from my market research job. Didn't mean to write it, just sort of sat down and it poured out of me. 18 months later, I am very, very grateful to have found a literary agent, and my book has been on submission for 3 weeks. So pray for me. I'm in the submission trenches.
But also, I also got a chance to see the whole journey she went through. So that is inspiring and amazing all on its own. Because we're all different and we're finding our paths. But she did amazing.
And I think we have mostly indie authors here, maybe some folks who are curious about trad, pursuing trad, but really this is just for anyone who writes and wants to talk about that writing on Bookstagram, Instagram today. We're not really going to focus on, any particular publishing path.
Well, sorry, I'm going to jump in one more time also.
Sure.
But when Christine was first on submission, just her, like subbing out her queries, her first agent that she got interested was liked her solely because she had a really good online presence. So visibility is important across the board completely. So it's always something to keep in mind. And it's always like, this is why I'm on social media, even though the thought of it at first horrified me. So
I didn't wind up signing with that agent, because funnily enough, I'll talk about more about this in a minute. I started this account because I wanted to get an agent and I knew having a following would maybe help with that. But the first agent who offered me representation seemed to like me more for my social media presence than for my actual writing. And that wound up being a red flag that came to, being seen as a red flag as I got to know him better. So I wasn't even planning on talking about that because I repressed that whole thing. But you're right. And what he said to me, and it really relates to this topic, is you're acting like a best-selling author, even though you aren't one yet. And I have a whole reel on this if you want to hear more on that topic. But I think that really speaks to this idea of building your brand. Like, who are you as a brand, as an author, as a writer? Your books are part of that, but your personality and how you present yourself on social media is also part of that. And so I showcase this right here because on the left, we've got how it started. When I started my account in July of last year, I really, I had all this market research knowledge. But I didn't really have a strategy. I for sure had no aesthetic. And after a month, I had 500 followers, which was, pretty good after a month, but it was a lot of follow to follow stuff. It wasn't like, I was putting out anything that incredible. I had a couple seeds of ideas of things I wanted to do every week, like Tip Tuesday. I wanted to do book reviews. I wanted to share quotes from my book. And I still do those things, but I do them now in a much more strategic way. And I do them now with a brand. And so you can see this is on the right side what my feed looks like now. I've got a banner across the top that I just updated a month ago when I went on sub that is specifically promoting the book that I'm on submission with, because if publishers, who really are my target market right now, honestly, if publishers come to my page, I want that to be the first thing they see. Right. And so think about that. The banner at the top of your page should be, that's your branding. That's what you want your target market to see first. And so we're going to talk more about what that means. And then from there, I have an aesthetic and I sort of have a brand. I have consistent fonts I use, consistent color schemes. And then from there, all the content can kind of fit within that. And now I'm at almost 5,000 followers. And so that's been more exponential growth because I've gotten more purposeful about the way I present my brand, not just filling up a feed. So real quick, just want to give you guys a brief rundown of what we're going to cover today. First of all, just why you should use market research principles to grow your Bookstagram, what advantage and edge that's going to give you over everybody else who doesn't know this stuff. And then what are sort of the 5 key principles that are going to help guide you on this journey to having a more purposeful and impactful Bookstagram account. We'll talk through each of these and we have some fun activities Kara said you guys like to be interactive, so hopefully you get involved with that. And then we'll wrap up just talking about how you should move forward now that you have this information. Do you want me to mute? Good. Okay. And then some tips for Bookstagram success. This is sort of like your cheat sheet, and this is actually maybe the most important stuff in the whole presentation, even though it's not market research related necessarily. So you'll want to stick around until the end. Any questions before we dive in? Okay, here we go. So really, when I was putting this together, the thought that I had in my mind is that we may not have billion-dollar budgets or any budget at all, right? Like a lot of us are started writing for fun, didn't get into this to make money, but now we're hoping maybe we can make a little bit of money off of our writing, but we don't really have any money to invest in our marketing, right? But you can still think like a million or billion-dollar brand. The stuff that I'm going to teach you guys today is the same stuff that Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies use and that we put together in our market research strategies for them. These top companies, top brands, they do not leave growth up to chance. Like Nike did not become Nike because they drew a swoosh on a page and just threw it out there, right? Like so much thought and research and trial and error. And Instagram is a lot of trial and error, trying different things and seeing what works went into that. But you also have to pay attention. So you try different things, you experiment, you see what works, and then you iterate on that. And from there, that helps you build your strategy. And so that's really where a lot of these market research principles came from, this experimental quest to better understand people and solve problems. And by doing that, these brands have been able to build loyalty. As a bookstagrammer or an author, if you can build loyalty, you're basically building your customer base, right? And that doesn't necessarily only mean loyalty to your books. It can also mean loyalty to you as a human that they are excited to see show up on their phone screen every day. And you don't need $1 million budget to do that, right? You just need to have some strategies. And so we're going to dig into those now. So the first strategy is very, very simple, but it's really important. And I think a lot of people skip this step. A lot of people just jump on to Bookstagram thinking, well, I write and I'm excited about it and I want to share my writing with the world. So I'm just going to get on Bookstagram and see what happens. And that's okay. But if you really want this to become, you know, a tool for you to bring in new readers, bring in new engagement, you need to set a goal, right? Brands, when they set out to do market research, they always know what they're trying to achieve. We call it the SMART question. They always have a strategic objective. With your Instagram, you should as well. You can want a lot of things, but try to pick one thing that you want the most. Do you want more engagement, more followers? Do you want to find ARC partnerships or ARC readers? Do you really want to drive book sales? If you do really want to drive book sales, keep in mind that social media can be part of that, but it should definitely not be the only thing you're doing because research has shown that there are better ways to drive book sales than just Instagram. That's a whole other conversation, but just keep it in mind. For me, like I said before, when I decided to join Bookstagram, I had actually just like sworn off social media in my personal life. I was like, you know, this is not having a good impact on my mental health. I think we all get into that comparison trap, but I'll talk more about this shortly. I have a friend who works pretty high up at Bloomsbury. And when I started wanting to publish my book, I got on the phone with her and I said, what do you think is like the most important thing for someone like me who's preparing to query agents to do? Do I need a website? She's like, don't even worry about the website. You need a Bookstagram account. Like you need a social media presence where they can see that you are willing to market yourself. So that was my goal. My goal was to create a social media presence that showcased that I could market myself and to have enough of a following that they would be somewhat impressed when they came to look at it. And that was it. And I really just continued to focus on that. If my comments were down, if my likes were down, I was like, all right, that's not great, but I really want to grow my followers. And I just kept focusing on that. So right now, I'd love to take a minute and everybody just jot down your number one goal for your Bookstagram. anyone wants to share, we would love that. But let's just take a minute and write that down. And you could drop them in the chat too, if you'd rather do that than shout them out. Follower growth and sales, more book sales, build an authentic connection with readers, more engagement, followers and arcs, grow my following and sales, more book sales. Kara, we're going to need a follow-up session on how to drive more book sales. 300 to 500 followers. Awesome. Awesome. This is great. So most people, it looks like, are looking to grow their following, and it seems like as a proxy or a way to drive more book sales. One thing that when I first actually shared like a mini version of this topic on Instagram that a friend in publishing followed up with me about was, you know, Instagram is great, but what really sells books is buzz. And buzz can be online, but it can also be in person. It can be at bookstores. It's basically positive word of mouth. And this is something that is like true across every industry. And it comes up in all of our studies, is you want to find a way to drive positive word of mouth. So this is why things like street teams are great. ARC readers are great. Countdowns are great. Joining writing groups on Instagram is super great, because then you can have like a team that, you know, hypes you up and shares your content. So if you're trying to figure out how to create that buzz so that you can sell more books, try to like build that inner circle around your book and your writing journey, so that those people then become promoters of your content as well, is what I would recommend. And if you share people's stuff, usually they'll share your stuff back. It's like they want to, you know, scratch your back as well. So that's something to think about.
Well, and then a side effect of even just us having this writers group, that we're like, you know, Christine had said earlier that the algorithm kind of threw us together, is that we don't really have to look for beta readers, because we're all writers and we all understand beta reading. And maybe not all of my betas are writers sometimes, but it's a really neat give and take. It's a really interesting community I didn't expect when I came online.
Just one more quick, because I want you guys to get as much value out of this session as possible. One quick thing for on the book sales front that I saw work super, super well for one of my friends whose book comes out in less than 2 weeks is a Goodreads giveaway. And basically this would happen to be sponsored through Goodreads, but I think you could do it on your own. If they add your book on Goodreads to their TBR, they will automatically be entered to win one of 10 copies. She got like 7,000 people put her book on their TBR within like 3 weeks. And now when those people go say, okay, what book am I going to buy next? It's on their short list. So I think you could probably reach out to Goodreads about stuff like that, or you could do it on your own and then just like pull the list of like, people who are looking at your book and do the giveaway that way. So just one quick idea. So the next thing, the second principle, is to define your audience. And probably most people are like, okay, I know who my audience is. I write, dystopian fantasy. So my target audience is, maybe it's YA dystopian fantasy readers. But that's really, really specific. And oftentimes your audience is broader than who you think. So a lot of times when like big companies come to us, they're like, okay, well, we want to talk to our customers because we want to make our customers happy. But it's like, well, don't you also want to talk to people who aren't your customers yet? And who could those people be? So think bigger. The best example of this, and I absolutely love telling this story, is 2.5 years ago, I got like the delight of my life. Bloomsbury reached out to my market research company that I work for. Somehow this woman, Erica, who is a senior marketing VP at Bloomsbury, got kicked over to me because everyone at work knows I love reading. And we started talking, and it turned out they wanted to do market research to help grow Sarah J. Maas's presence. Now, this was 2.5 years ago. Sarah J. Maas 2.5 years ago was on like hardcore fantasy readers' radar, but she was not like at the top of the bestseller list like she is right now. She has since blown up. And part of the reason is because we learned this through that research, that Bloomsbury was, and you got, if you guys are fans of hers, you may remember like the old covers, the old blurbs. Those books were marketed as like YA, maybe new adult, very pretty hardcore fantasy. And what we learned is that the universe of romance readers is like 5 times bigger than the universe of fantasy readers. Again, 2.5 years ago, I think it's caught up a little bit since then. And that there are a lot more adult readers than YA readers. And so if they could somehow find a way to reposition these books as more romance heavy and for adults, all of a sudden this opens them up to millions of additional readers. And that's exactly what they did. And you can see her books, I mean, the ACOTAR books came out like 10 years ago. They're having their moment now over the past year and a half. And this is why, because they remarketed them. So even if you have your books have been out for a while, you can talk about them in a different way and target them to different people. Maybe you have a trope, maybe you have a dystopian novel, but you have enemies to lovers. So so many people love enemies to lovers. Talk about that on your Bookstagram. You're going to attract new readers, even if they might not be super into dystopian. Now your book is going to be on their radar. The third sphere of this is going even broader to other writers, publishing professionals. For me, this is actually a big part of my audience because I just love connecting with other writers. But the benefit of it has really been what I talked about before, that other writers become your hype squad. So if you have other writers in your audience and you're giving them content that they find helpful, they're going to be that much more likely to reshare your content. That gets you access to their audience. That gets you more followers. They're going to be more likely to connect you with other people, both in person and in the digital world. So that's a really long-winded way of saying think bigger when it comes to your audience, and think about different types of content that you can offer in addition to talking about your book that can get you that reach, that broader reach beyond just your readers. So in terms of the try it, and I'm going to let you guys maybe, I'll give you a minute and then we'll keep moving so we can get through everything. You can also do this after the fact, right? I think there's a lot of stuff here. You guys can sit down and take 20 minutes and really think through this, but think about 2 to 3 types of content that you really enjoy making. Even if it's not about your book, maybe you like love silly memes, right? Like silly reels and silly memes. How could you make that and use it to reach an audience that you'd like to connect with? So take some time, think about that. While you're thinking about that, the other thing I want to make folks aware of, and Kara, I think you mentioned maybe you would do like a separate deep dive specifically into this topic, but it's really, really critical to mention when you're talking about your audience, you may sort of like agnostically or anecdotally is what I meant, see on Instagram like who your audience is, because you see these people, you hear how they're talking, but there's no substitute for like true demographic information. Instagram and TikTok both have analytics in the dashboard. You can go in and see who you're reaching, gender, age, I think even region, like where they live,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
time of day, right? Like when are they most active? So if they're most active at like 8 o'clock at night, post your content at 8 o'clock at night. If they're most active at noon during lunch, schedule your content to go up at noon. It even will help you understand, are you mostly reaching the same followers over and over, or is your content reaching a broader population of non-followers? And it will also tell you, you can look at like every individual piece of content you post. It'll tell you how many new followers that piece of content brought in. We're going to talk more about how to use that information later, but this is really worth digging into. And then, Kara, if you wind up doing another session on this, I think there's a ton to talk about here.
Yeah, next May, there we go. In May, I'll be doing how to review your analytics and everything like that. To sort of bounce off of what Christine said, though, when I started my Instagram account, I did not have a book published. I had no idea who my target market was. I only knew that it wasn't YA on purpose because I put open door scenes in there. I didn't want it to be pegged YA. So Instagram and Facebook Meta Suite, Business Suite actually helped me start to gear my books and my voice towards the right people, which was kind of who I thought, but it wasn't all who I thought. Like, I actually have men who like my stuff, which isn't anything that I thought was going to happen. So it's definitely interesting.
Yes, that's a really good point. And that's why, like, again, that think bigger, think broader, like you might be appealing to people that you didn't expect. But at the same time, if you're marketing your YA book and you hop into Instagram analytics and see that 60% of your followers are in their 40s, okay, well, you're not really reaching the right audience unless they're buying your book for their kids, which maybe they are. So really use that data. And I mean, maybe everyone picked up on this, but important for me to note, I don't even have a book out yet. I've done all of this without even having like a physical product that I'm selling. And so that's why really for me, this piece of it was so important because like if I just kept marketing to readers, it'd be like, stay with me for another year, maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
What do I have to offer that's valuable right now? And a lot of that was just my love of reading, my love of writing, and my knowledge. So that helped me define my audience as well.
Well, and for just sort of a really broad overview as well, most of the experts in the indie publishing sphere say that you need to start talking about your book 6 to 9 months in advance because it takes a while to build up hype. Even if you have people, you still want to do it. I wouldn't do much longer before or after, I don't know. I wouldn't do much longer. I know some people do a year. I think you are on run the risk of people forgetting about you unless you are still constantly pumping out stuff. Reggie did ask a question about reels. We can probably answer that a little bit later, unless you think are reels better for reaching new people. So
Yes, I can answer that right now. The answer is yes. The algorithm prioritizes reels, I think both on Instagram and TikTok, especially reels that like show your face. The algorithm just seems to love them and seems to prioritize them both in like the discover page and just in general. I found that, and I've seen other influencers talk about this, that just like reels that show you or show your face tend to do really well. That said, there are faceless accounts that do amazing. I think Lena was on here a month or two ago talking about her account. We're to talk about like branding in a minute or two. She's done so well as a faceless account. But I think the key with reels is like keep it simple and offer some value or a really good hook. That's going to be how you're going to get that really wide reach. If it's like a long rambling, which I'm guilty of sometimes, reel or something that's like really dense and text heavy, it's probably not going to hit. I think the ones that are kind of keeping it simple are the ones that do the best. Okay, so the third principle is what I like to call giving the people what they're missing. In market research, we call it identifying an unmet need. Really at the core of almost every research we do is trying to figure out what do people need and how can we or our clients give it to them in a way that is different from what they are already getting. So you might need caffeine in the morning, but if you already have a go-to coffee brand, then like selling coffee as a brand is not going to like do it. Is not, you're not going to have a lot of growth potential because that need is being met. But if you are, you know, a toothpaste company, for example, and you do research and realize that people are frustrated because they can't get all the toothpaste out of the tube and they're leaving 20% of the toothpaste in there. Now you found an unmet need. You could offer a new type of packaging that gets all the toothpaste out of the tube and it's going to go flying off the shelves because people have never seen this before and it delights them. These are very researchy examples of giving the people what they're missing, but we can do this as bookstagrammers. So the best way to figure this out, if you don't know where to start, is to just look at what is out there. Scroll your feed. The discover page is really, really great for that. And look for what's trending, what both like reels, formats, audios, take them and then riff off of them. Instagram is a perfect example of like, there is no completely original idea. Everybody is just riffing off of what other people have done before. But if you can find a way to do it that is unique, that's where you're going to really get attention. I put this example here from my own page because a week or two ago, I noticed that I was seeing like Lucy Score and Megan Quinn and all these big romance authors, posting things like this, where it was like just literally a screenshot, probably from like the Google Doc of their manuscript, with a cool background, highlighted some words, and they were usually pretty steamy. And they were like going crazy. And I'm like, I'm gonna start doing this. Like, I have some steamy stuff in my book. I'm gonna start like pulling some like semi-clean but steamy excerpts and throwing them up. And you can see here, like people went crazy for it. You know, they were like, hot damn, I love this. So that's an example of, you know, taking something that you see as a need that people want more of. Other people might be doing it, but if people want more of it, they're hungry for it, jump on the bandwagon. If it's a really hot trend, like one that comes to mind is people might remember from a couple months ago, everyone was like doing that song, like then I go and ruin it by saying something stupid like I love you, and they were like adding their own riff on that. If you see this blowing up, you want to like jump on it within 1 to 3 days, because then everyone's going to be doing it and people are going to be sick of it and it's just going to bomb. So that's like, you know, if you see something and you're like, oh, this is really hot, jump on it right away or just let it fizzle. Because there's always going to be another trend that you can jump on. So in terms of homework for you guys, you know, trying to figure out what unmet need you can capitalize on, think about a recent post. It can be yours, it can be someone else's, like my examples I gave, Lucy Score, Megan Quinn, that got really great engagement. And think about like, what need is it meeting for followers? Is it funny? Is it like vulnerable and making people feel seen? Is it practical advice that they can use? Or maybe it's really creative and just inspirational. If you want to look at your own stuff, you can go into your professional dashboard on Bookstagram and you can sort your content by views or by likes or really by a lot of different things. For me, this is how I became really consistent with my writing tip Tuesdays, because I was seeing that I was getting consistently high engagement with those writing tips. And that is where it's meeting this practical need, right? People have this practical need for bite-size, practical writing advice on a weekly basis. And once I had an agent, I really accelerated the interest in those pieces because I was able to speak about them with an expertise that I didn't have before, especially about how to get an agent. So think about it. We are all authors. We have expertise in an area that many people fail at. So what expertise can you share that's going to build your connection to your followers?
And one of the things I'd like to point out is that I had always known that I had gathered a ton of information for indie publishing in my experience. And when I came to Anchor's Mastermind group, I realized that people didn't understand the power of social media because so many authors, not anybody specifically, but I was just hearing again and again so many authors struggle for visibility, and they could be doing everything right, but that was sort of a missing link. So that's kind of why I was like, I know about that, I'll do it. So that's why we're here.
Yep. And I think, Kara, you are really great at spotting those unmet needs and then figuring out how to fill gaps. And we'll talk about the gap that you and I are filling together in
Yes,
another
it's very
slide or two.
exciting.
Yes, we're very excited about it.
Thank you.
Um, so the next piece, and this kind of goes right back to the beginning where I said build your brand, not your feed, is to build your brand to the point that it is pretty much instantly recognizable and also trustworthy. This is how big brands win and blow up. I mean, think about like brands you see every day. Like you see the Nike swoosh, you immediately know that's Nike and you have some sort of feeling about it, right? You either like, oh, I love Nike, their shoes last forever, they're so cool. Like it makes you feel good, or you're like, oh, my last pair fell apart, I hate them. Like you see the Toyota logo on the front of a car, you immediately know what that is and you have some sort of feeling. It's emotionally resonant. We want to create the same feeling for our followers as Bookstagrammers. So we're really, where this starts is figuring out your brand identity. And this is something, like I said before, that I did not do when I was first starting out. And actually, when I heard Lena's session on here, that's when I was like, oh, I really got to like get my shit together and get a brand look and feel aesthetic, get it all tied up. And when I really thought about it, it came down to these three things. The first is, what is your tone or voice as a creator? right? Are you sarcastic? Are you witty? Are you soft spoken? Are you cozy? What is your voice that you're going for? And all of the writing that you do, whether it's on a carousel or in a caption. What is your visual vibe? This, I think, as authors, it really makes sense to try to link these things to your book aesthetic, your book vibe, your writing, right? So one person actually messaged me the other day and said, wow, if your book is anywhere as compelling as the writing you do in your Instagram posts, I can't wait to read it. You want that connection to be completely clear. So if somebody goes from your Instagram to your book, it is like, oh yeah, this is the same person that I love. And then what are your values? What do you bring to the table? Are you funny and lighthearted? Are you really focused on diversity or mental health, which is huge right now? A writer I know is autistic and, spoke out about all of like the really crazy stuff that's going on in our world today, messages about autism. And she went from like 3,000 followers to 6,000 overnight. This happened like just a few days ago. And she'd been struggling to build her following for years, but by being so vulnerable on a topic that she had the authority to speak on, she was able to really, connect with people. So think about what your tone, your vibe, your values are, and think about your willingness to be a little vulnerable on social media. It doesn't mean you have to like show your face or be like crying on a reel or, going on a rant, but your brand is not just your books, it is also you. And so how can you help your followers connect with you as a person? Maybe twice a month you post something that is a little bit more about you or your perspective on something, not just your books. And then make sure it really is coming through in your look and feel so that if somebody comes across a post of yours in their feed in the wild, they're immediately like, that is Kara. I know that's Kara because it's got the bold and it's got the green and it's got the gold. And this is Kara's brand. The last thing here is less is more. Less is more in the image, in the reel. Save the details for the captions, right? If you've got like 5 steps to blah, 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 yeah, you could do 5 slides, that's fine too, but you're better off doing a talking head reel that's short and cute and has a hook and putting those 5 steps in the caption. So I challenge all of you, and this is probably the most fun exercise that I have in this whole presentation, to figure out what your brand is. And it can be a brand that you're excited about. When you get off this webinar, if you have some time, brainstorm a little bit. Like, what is your tone? For me, I go for friendly but elevated. Hopefully that's coming through in this conversation. But honestly, like, your tone should be who you are. It shouldn't be hard to achieve it. It should really be a natural extension of your personality, because otherwise you're not being authentic, and that's key on social media. What's your vibe? For me, my whole vibe, you can, kind of get it with this deck, but it's on my feed too, is like, I call it evocative fantasy. Rich colors, lots of jewel tones, but like fantasy everywhere, because I write adult romantasy. And then my values are transparency. I talk about everything related to the highs and lows of my writing journey, and I think people really appreciate that. If you're looking to level up, like I said at the beginning, I highly recommend Canva. That could be a whole other training, but it is awesome. You can create a brand toolkit, make all your content right in there. It really helps you keep everything visually consistent across all your posts.
I actually do have a recording where we went through and walked through Canva, sort of the basics. So I don't remember the date, but I know that Adrian and Melissa were definitely there, and a bunch of other people. But so there is a recording on that. I think it was just sort of building your content.
Awesome.
Yeah, actually, I started using Canva and I just realized a couple of weeks ago that you can actually build reels with it. And I didn't realize that before until I started playing around with it.
Yes, and they have tons of like videos. Especially if you have the premium account, they have tons of like be-real type stuff that you can use in your reels if you don't want to show your face, for example. So yeah, it's really fabulous.
And again, I can have another Canva session, but in one of the, I actually asked Christine because my friend wrote like this really awesome thing about one of my free novellas. And I was like, I have to do something with this. What is this? And she was like, use a Canva template and make it as a text. And I was like, that's perfect, because that's how my friend sent it to me. And people
I love
went
that.
crazy. They were like, how did you make this? They loved it. So it's Canva is really amazing.
It's really awesome because like we just gave in that example, if you have an idea, you're like, oh, I want like to do a book review, or I want to do like an animated like text back and forth. You just type it in and it'll like give you 10 options, and you don't have to like sit there going crazy trying to come up with something. So yes, Canva is well worth, for me at least, I think the premium membership, but it's well worth using. So the last tip here is we talked about how to identify a gap, an unmet need, build your brand, figure out what your brand is, and then use that brand to fill a gap in the market. Basically, this goes back to being the influencer that they didn't know they needed, right? What can you say, show, or offer that's currently missing or underrepresented? I think we talked about a little bit of this already, but we just wanted to go into a little bit more depth. You know, take a look at your feed. What's overdone? What are you not seeing a lot of? How can you put your unique spin on it? Maybe you are hilarious and you like love funny reels and you have like a great deadpan delivery. You know, that's a perfect example of something that you could put out there that is your unique spin. And you could talk about your book, or you could talk about tropes, right? It can be book related, but you can use your own unique spin on it. Just some examples here. If you don't know where to start, you can use fill in the blank exercises, sort of like when you're writing a query letter. You know, I or my books are like X, but with Y, right? Like my books are like Outlander, but with magic. I post book recommendations, but make them witchy, right? Whatever you do, you know, make it clear what your unique spin on it is, because chances are that there are going to be a lot of people out there that relate to that unique piece of it, that you're offering. So, for example, I talked about my writing tip Tuesday, and teaching kind of runs in my family, and I love teaching people. And so for me, being able to do this writing tip Tuesday, I'm like, even if I'm not like selling any books, future books doing this, it brings me joy. And that comes through and makes me relatable. And I get like some of the most engagement on these posts. And so figure out like what that is, that you can, how you can showcase your joy on Instagram. The other thing that Kara and I came up with was identifying a need in the Bookstagram community, that there were not a lot of people talking about indie publishing and trad publishing together in the same place at the same time. We're friends, we're in a writing group together. And so we thought, why don't we do this? Why don't we like get on, you know, a podcast or Instagram live once every couple of weeks and just come at a topic from both perspectives, compare, contrast, find that common ground. And so far it's been really well received. So challenge you to do some brainstorming, you know, come up with some ideas of how you could own your specific niche.
And it can change over time. I know I've been asked a couple of times. My initial thing when I was coming into Instagram was the lightning cherry blossoms doors, because that was my first book. Now my character is always going to have lightning, and there's always going to be cherry blossoms, and there's always going to be portals. But my world has expanded so much because Madame side characters just want to have their own stories. So now it can't just be this one main character, female main character, because it's a whole world at this point. So I am moving into portals and sort of embracing that. So it does grow as the more you learn.
And you know what? That's true for big brands too. They do rebrands, right? They don't just, and we're going to actually talk about that. That's the next slide, monitor and course correct. Just like any Fortune 500 brand tracking program, like this is something that we do a lot of the time. We come up with a strategy, we tell them what to do, and then we monitor it over time. You don't just set it and forget it. You wait to see what happens. It does take time for the algorithm to do its thing. I mean, in the corporate world and like the product world, we tell brands like, come talk to us in 6 months once you put like new advertising out in the market, because you're not going to see sales increase tomorrow. These things take time to snowball. But I do recommend, if you can, tracking some metrics on your own performance. I have an Excel spreadsheet and Google Docs. I do this once a week. You could do it, once a month, whatever you have time for, but how many followers you have and how that's increased since the last time you've, added your data. How many people you're following. Personally, I don't know how much this matters, but I do try to like keep my number I'm following less than the number of followers I have. I feel like the algorithm kind of like prioritizes you a little bit more. And then looking at maybe on like a bi-weekly or monthly basis, what of all your posts that you've posted recently, which ones did the best in terms of whatever your goal is, getting you new followers, getting you the most comments, the most shares, the most views, whatever it is. Look at those top 2, 3, 5 posts and make more posts like that. This is something Maria Wench, who's like a big, Instagram growth influencer, talks about. You want to keep moving in the direction of what's working. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So like it says here, look at what's working for you, keep moving in that direction.
And again, we'll go into a deeper dive next session, and I don't remember the date right now. It is May. And I'm going to break down analytics and how to look at them versus like panicking and just changing directions, because it's not always, like Christine said, it snowballs. But we have like 9 minutes left, Christine.
Okay, I'm just going to go through this really quick and then time for questions. This is fairly self-explanatory. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out, because again, it has nothing to do with market research. It just has to do with how to win with the algorithm. And I think any talk on Bookstagram would be incomplete without mentioning some of these things. You want to hook people in the first 2 seconds of your post, whether it's a reel or a carousel, and you want to have a call to action in every single post you do. A lot of people use questions of the day, whatever it is. You want to get people commenting. The algorithm actually cares more about shares, saves, and comments than it does about likes. So whatever you can do to create save-worthy comment, get people to share your content, get people to comment. Giveaways are great for this. Obviously, you don't want to overuse them, but those sort of things can like really give you a boost with the algorithm. We talked a lot about Canva, but I will say that using Instagram's like tools to make reels will give you higher reach with the algorithm. It's annoying, but true. So if you have a pretty simple reel, like a talking head, and again, simple is good, you can use those native tools. Always use subtitles if you're doing a talking head, anything. I don't even look at a reel if it doesn't have subtitles, because I am with my kids and my sound is down. So just assume you need subtitles. Consistency over frequency. You don't need to post every day, but you do need to post consistently. So if it's 2 days a week, Monday and Friday, that's fine. Just be consistent. I have one friend who only posts once a week, and she's had like tremendous growth and has had several of her reels go viral. And then use stories to engage, polls, questions, things like that. It also helps keep you top of mind if you're not posting every day. That's all I got. Questions?
Thank you so much, Christine. Yeah, what do you guys have for us, for her? Now they're quiet.
I don't really have anything, but this was very helpful. Thank you.
That's really nice. Does anybody have any of their 3 words that they would want to put their brand on that you'd like to share? Or do you already have a brand? Are you thinking about changing your brand up? No.
Hey,
I don't have. I have a question if no one raised their hand. About scheduling tools. So Instagram doesn't like it as much if you schedule things with a schedule, like an outside schedule, like later or something like that.
I've heard that. Personally, I just schedule stuff right within the app. And that seems to work fairly well. I have heard that if you just like honestly just go right in and post it, like save it as a draft and then just hop in and post it, that is like going to give you the most favorable result with the algorithm. But I think also at the end of the day, like all of these little hacks and tricks, I don't think they're going to hold you back from being successful if you are putting out content and putting out a brand personality that people are excited about. Like the fact that you scheduled your post, I don't know. I don't think that's going to hold you back. And life is life. Like we can't, we're all doing a lot of things. If you have to schedule a post, yeah, I haven't heard from anyone that that's like really what's holding them back.
Well, and what's really interesting is that like I think Christine had said like if you make the reels inside of Instagram, it'll kind of boost you a little bit more, and Instagram likes to be used by Instagram. So that's really where that is. Scheduling it from Canva, you can only do posts. It's freaking annoying. But that would not be as high of a priority of Instagram because they like to dig into their own pond, basically.
Mhm.
Melissa?
Oh, I wanted to ask some more about figuring out your brand.
Sure.
Like I know the graphics side better, so it's a little easier for me to figure out colors and fonts and things like that, but brand personality, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about it and
Yeah.
how you figure out what yours actually is.
So I would honestly start with your own personality, right? Like and this might be something where you like literally just sit down with like a blank piece of paper and you kind of like brainstorm, like what is my personality? Or ask your friends and family, how would they describe you if you feel like you don't want to like, some people don't really know how to think about that for themselves. And then once you have like a big list, right, of maybe like your personality traits, like you could even ask beta readers or friends who have read your work, like how would you describe my voice and my writing? Is it, poetic? Is it sharp? Is it how would you describe it? And and then also think about your values. For that, I would say it really comes with what are you most excited to talk about online, right? Like for me, again, it's that sort of like pulling back the curtain and like here's like the truth. Like I'm going to show you my query letter. I'm going to tell you exactly how many rejections I got because like no one did that for me. And the people who did, it was like so helpful. So for me, I got really excited about transparency. But maybe like what fills you up and lights you up is like being funny or like talking about underrepresented like writers or authors or characters. So whatever it is, whatever lights you up, throw that on your sheet and then really try to pick like one thing in each of these buckets. And I would like circle them and stick them on the wall next to your desk or whenever you make your content, like look at that and be like, how can I be poetic, dark academia, diversity in this post, right? And like maybe you hit 2 out of those 3. You don't have to hit all 3 every time. It's sort of a North Star. Does that help?
That does. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Natalie has a question. In regards to jumping onto hot trends within 1 to 3 days, does this count for a trending audio as well?
Trending audio. I have to
TikTok
be
is, oh, I'm sorry, Christine. TikTok is really, really good about that. Go ahead for Instagram, but TikTok, like if you pick that trending audio, it's the weirdest thing, but it's shooting through the roof. It's crazy, but go ahead for Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening as much on Instagram. What I would say is, try to start with like the trending audio list, but then really pick again music that's going to like fit with your content. For me, like if I'm posting a like writing tips carousel, like I'm going to put a song with that that's sort of like background classical study music, right? Like that goes with my vibe because people don't want to listen to like, I don't know, like Sabrina Carpenter when they're trying to read in, writing tips and take notes versus if I'm like just trying to get people's attention with something like bright and upbeat, that's not got a lot to read. I'm going to put, maybe, APT. I used APT a lot with like my like really quick hook reels because that song was trending and that did really well. So yeah, think about what fits with the content and what's going to grab attention, but I think it matters more with TikTok than with Instagram.
What I do also sort of, again, to sort of say like go with your brand on that one, I have recently been writing novellas. But I actually have very specific songs that my characters like. So that's really helpful too. People kind of dig that. But my last novella that I wrote was written it was written just this year, but it was like the time frame was like late 80s, early 90s. So I was connecting all of these songs to that post when I was, well, I still am, but that really gave me like a North Star for music.
I love that. I love that.
Um, all right, Christine, Christine is, I believe, going to give me the link to this, so you'll be able to have the PowerPoint slides along with the recording. Anybody else have any other questions? I know Christine has something you want to sign off with, but
I just want to, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me. Like, you can probably tell I love doing stuff like this, and just connecting with other writers. So please connect with me on Instagram. You can connect with me on TikTok, but I don't go on there as much. I am always on Instagram. You can DM me if you have any questions. I am queen of the voice memo. I just started, this is like, again, word of mouth only, buzz only. I just started offering editorial services, submission packet reviews, obviously doing speaking engagements, talks like this. So if you're interested in any of that or just want to chat about writing, come find me. But yeah, thank you, Kara, and thank you guys so much for having me.
thank you. Yeah. And that's another side effect of TikTok. You get to meet editors and beta readers. And I know I already talked about beta readers, but all of these great, like even character illustrators, all this wonderful stuff. So I did post the newsletter link into the chat again. If you didn't get a chance to click it, make sure you let me know. You can reach me on Instagram. I now have a TikTok. Somebody else is doing it for me.
Wasn't it like the best 2 days when TikTok was just like disappeared and we're like, maybe it'll never come back? I know it was really, really bad for some people, but for me, I was like, I don't need that.
Yeah, I understand the reasoning behind it. I do have someone working with me. They are managing that because she's over there more often. But I'll get the message if you go to TikTok, Facebook. So yeah, just reach out if you have any questions. I can get them to Christine. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and spring and day.
Yes. Thank you guys. Have a great
Thank
night.
you. Bye.